And hello, and welcome everyone to the comic multiverse, where the worlds of nerd meet. And oh, Matt, not to call my shot too early or anything, but we got a show this week, man. A show of shows. We got so much shit going on here. We're going to be talking about uh, I guess what you would call the current status of DC Comics. As is always the way we record this show, Sunday night usually. By the next Monday, the shit had gone down.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, not even like the next day. It was like in the late hours of Sunday for me at least.
Yeah, the shit had gone down. We're going to be covering that. We got some new books to talk about. Again, it's going to be a very DC heavy show. Marvel was pretty quiet this week, and then after that, where we would normally talk about what we read this week. If you're watching this on YouTube, Patreon people have already gotten to see this, but I scored a hell of an interview with Justin Halpern, the executive producer of the Harley Quinn show, which naturally I know people on my channel loved that show, and it's now on HBO Go. So there's a whole new group of people seeing it, and we dig deep in the show, and he's just a fun guy.
Awesome. Yeah, the show was really good. It recently came to Amazon Prime here, both seasons, so I'm like catching up on it.
It's good shit. Like, it is genuinely surprising the
Yeah.
places that show goes, both in terms of comedy and in terms of characterization. Because it's like, oh, this isn't just a funny laugh show. There's actual like stuff going on here,
Yeah, yeah.
and they make better choices with Harley than the comics have made in a couple of years. Not gonna
Yeah,
lie,
yeah, they do. They're definitely one of my favorite interpretations of Harley.
Harley is getting a new costume though, as we
And it
saw.
looks good. She doesn't look like a circus hooker anymore.
No, it's a nice combination of her new 52 look, which is also the movie look and going to be the de facto look, but also, hey, she's got the little frilly things around her wrist again, and she actually has something that looks like it would help her in a fight.
Yeah, all that she's missing is like a top hat.
Yeah, again, Assault on Arkham kind of solved that pretty good, where it wasn't makeup, it was a hat, but it's like you could still see her eyes through it and
Hmm.
everything, and a lot of face was still exposed.
Hmm. Yeah.
That would be cool. The chat mentioned Stargirl. Yeah, I guess since last we did the show, Stargirl finally ended its first season, and boy, what a freaking finale that was.
What a finale! They got like they went to places I didn't think that show was gonna go.
No. It's like usually when a show like that comes to an end, where it's like, oh well, naturally they're gonna have to plant some seeds to drum up interest for a second season. Here they almost do the Lord of the Rings thing, where it's like, okay, here's multiple endings, each with their own seed of shit we could do.
Yeah, yeah, and it makes sense because obviously the show got renewed for season two on the CW, so we have many different places that show can now go. You've got the stuff with like Yolanda ending up killing
Hmm.
Brainwave to discuss, and kind of
Yup.
followed in with the type of hero she wants to be. You got the what else happened in there? I guess Icicle died, quote unquote.
Yeah, so, will his son, take up the mantle and become the villainous Icicle Jr. that we know? Or will he, become a hero like the other guys? Then, of course, you got the Eclipso gem.
Mhm.
Was not expecting them to go there. That's pretty heavy.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And then, of course, you have the Shade coming back. And I literally sat there all season long where I'm like, what about the Shade? When's the Shade going to get there? And literally, he shows up and just talks shit about all the other villains.
I like through the season they teased like what happened with Shay's like, oh well, he betrayed the team, and like all this shit went down with them and all that. So yeah, could he be an ally to Stargirl at first, and maybe try and take out the rest of the Injustice Society that's still alive? Because like
Yeah.
Gamble is like the only one who kind of escaped.
Yeah. The Gambler, and also I'm assuming Tigress and Sportsmaster
Yeah.
escaped too, or at least they didn't die.
Hmm.
So that was certainly fun. But yeah, man, such a cool show, such an iconic ending too, when they're just hanging out there on the water tower.
Yeah, yeah. It was a nice ending.
Very nice ending, very good, very feel good. Something we definitely need now in a day and age when it feels like we get less and less feel good. So beyond that, how was your week, man? What have you been up to?
Yeah, no, it's been pretty good. I've been working. I was talking to you before the show. I recently acquired an Elgato capture card.
Yes, I'm jealous. I will now need to get on your level.
Yeah, I got it yesterday and I've been playing around with it, and it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun.
Nice. Nice. I got to get back to streaming more stuff too. I know the Franken way of streaming that I have been doing ain't gonna
Mm.
hold up with all these new powerful games. I tried to do that with Sekiro, and everything almost blew up.
Oh yeah, like I've noticed because I did the exact same thing with you that you did with my setup, and then like I changed to the Elgato, and it's like night and day.
Oh, I can only imagine. So I've been playing a little bit more Sekiro there. I gotta get my glasses fixed. I'm sure I would have beaten the game by now, but I keep getting eye strain playing it. I'm like, it's too much. It's too much color and too much beauty. I can't handle it. So I keep needing to take breaks during the bigger battles. But that's a lot of fun. So yeah, that's basically what I've been up to. Should we hop on into the news because there's so much of it.
There's a lot.
Now, again, a lot of these stories we're going to cover are kind of connected for the first little bit, so follow us on this journey, if you will, and we'll try and figure this out. We might bob and weave in and out, but by the end, we are going to be covering basically the big goings-ons, which I alluded to at the top of the show, and that is Monday last week after we did the show. DC and Warner Brothers, as well as their parent company AT&T, announced a ton of huge layoffs at the company, like some huge ass names there, including Bob Harris, Andy. I can never pronounce.
Corey.
Yeah, Corey.
I know the one you're talking about. Yeah.
Was a very nice guy who I followed him on Twitter forever, and he's one of the few executives or like editors and people in power where it's like, oh wow, you're actually a pretty cool dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot of people were gone from the company, and no one could really explain how or why. Eventually, it would come out later. AT&T's like, oh, well, we had to scale back on some of our smaller divisions because of coronavirus and because of this, that, and the other thing, just natural layoffs. And in the back of my mind, and I'm sure you were thinking this too, Matt, where it's like, this was bound to happen.
Oh yeah, this is, and DC Comics isn't the only one suffering from. I think like HBO let a bunch of people go, which is really strange considering they've just launched an app.
Yeah.
I think all up between like DC Comics, HBO, Warner Brothers, and whatever else. I think there was about 800 people.
Something like that, 600 to 800. It's funny, all the major websites and all the YouTube videos, they all referred to it as a bloodbath, which was interesting. They were making this seem like friggin' the Red Wedding, like Bloody Sunday or something. Like, well, it's more of a bloodletting than a bloodbath, but still pretty rough for all the people who work there, especially people, again, who I mentioned, like Harris, who was like, well, I assumed they would never leave. I assumed they would have to be dragged out kicking and screaming.
Yeah, his was probably the most surprising out of this because, yeah, he's been with the company for a while. Like, he's been through many different things like this, and he's been the one who's, like, come out of it untouched, except now.
Yeah, totally entrenched. I was going to say for better or worse, but mostly it's for worse if you believe all the rumors that fly around about him.
Yeah.
But, man, to see him and Didio both leave in the same year, at least Didio kind of makes it sound like maybe he was fired, maybe he left under his own power, maybe he was just the first of what would be the rest of these.
Yeah, I could see him being like the one that they're like, if we get rid of him, then we can like get rid of all these other people.
Or just to like test the waters.
Yeah.
The saddest thing about, well, two sad things about it. One, they did it on a Monday. They fired all these people on a Monday during a global pandemic.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good.
That's bad. And then it's the 1-2 punch of, hey, we fired all these people from this company. Also, get hyped for a couple weeks for fandom, everybody.
That's what I found so fucking strange about this. Yeah, it was like, was it, I think 7 days out from maybe the biggest thing they're going to have all the next year and a half, basically.
And now it has this dark cloud swirling around it, which, ooh, that doesn't bode well for AT&T's managerial style for this, because that either means one of two things. One, they knew and they didn't care, which is likely, or two, they had no freaking clue that fandom was coming out and what it meant to the DC brand, and they just fucking did it anyway.
But also it calls into question fandom because what a lot of people didn't seem to realize is a lot of it is going to be pre-recorded stuff.
Yes, it is pre-recorded.
So there's no chance that anyone who if it was live, there's no chance that anyone who was on there can say anything about it.
Or complain, which, Yeah, I caught on that late in the game when James Gunn was sharing some stuff from Suicide Squad. It's like, hey, here's some clips from the upcoming fandom panel. I'm like, you already did it? And then I'm like, oh, wait, not only did you already do it, but you already solicited questions months in advance from people like me.
Yep. I think they might have had this planned.
And then you cut it off so no one could ask about it. Oh my god.
Kind of all fits together, doesn't it?
Holy shit, that is some comic book supervillain shit is what that is. I'm building a box. You won't know you're in it until it's too late. Which, man, say what you want, and I'm sure we're going to be saying this a lot in the next weeks and months. Say what you want about Disney and their handling of the Marvel IP and anything. At the very least, Disney, in their heart of hearts, their creative soul will always be as the cartoon makers, as the Imagineers, the storytellers. AT&T, Matt, what's their creative soul?
Phones?
Phone company. Tech bro capitalism, apps and shit, and apparently not even doing really good with phones, because everyone I hear who has AT&T only complains about AT&T.
And that's what I've heard about HBO Max. Like, it's not as good as like what they were touting it to be. Like in the first week or something, didn't they lose all the Harry Potter films?
Yeah, that's right. There was a huge thing with that, losing a lot of shit. Also, too, another thing they can't talk about at fandom, but will probably be forced to mention. So the DC Universe app is basically dead in the water now, yes? I mean, we joked about it.
Pretty much is.
But now I think the writing is officially on the wall. All the good, worthwhile shows have gone elsewhere. And hey, kind of fitting, too, that, again, I have an interview with Justin Halpern coming up. He basically more or less confirms it in our interview, where it's like, yeah, they had lots of good shows, and now everyone can see them elsewhere.
Yeah, I just don't see the logic behind it. They created the DC app. It's fine. It's got its own stuff. But then why are they sending it all to HBO Max? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, apparently HBO Max is going to be the hub for everything now because, what is it? They called in, some outside sources, some outside contractors to try and get these new acquisitions up in ship shape. And basically, the app people are going to be running a huge chunk of stuff in their entertainment division. And in the comic division, they brought in someone from the world of esports.
Yeah. Yes, because esports, they know everything about comics.
Because esports and comics are the same thing. Oh, yeah, we're going to get someone from there to hang over all these creators' heads. And again, before people tell me, yes, I know, some people like Heather Antos left comics briefly to work in esports and came back, but it ain't that.
Yeah, but that's like the opposite way. That's the good way. She started in comics and went to esports. It's not esports coming to comics.
That's such a fucking weird choice, but such a completely, utterly corporate choice where it's like, yeah, that's something.
That's cool with the kids. That's cool with the kids these days.
Make the comics like Fortnite. Make the Batman, but like the Fortnite.
Yeah, Fortnite. That's holding its players hostage at the moment because they're mad at Google and Apple.
Yeah, fuck. That's another thing that happened this week. The Fortnite uprising. Don't let 1984 happen again, says Fortnite. Fortnite, I think that's maybe not a great literary reference to make, right? Okay. No, it's the most important thing, Joel, that's ever happened in our time. Buildings on fire in the background, mailboxes being stolen in the night. Yeah, but Fortnite, though. And this story just kept growing and kept evolving, too, because only a couple days after this news hit, solicitations came out for, October, November, and beyond and everything. And as we found out from the solicitations from DC, they axed several big titles. Now, admittedly, a lot of these titles were kind of up in the air anyway, because death metal, by the time we hit January, is going to be resetting and renumbering any of these anyway. Mm-hmm. But the fact that this all came so close together, it's kind of hard to feel like, ooh, was that more axes falling? Was that more chickens coming home to roost?
Well, as you said, I saw heaps of people saying it was like these are like the first casualties after those layoffs, and like these things are like thought out well in advance. These would have become cancelled like months ago.
Now that's not to say that when taken all together, they don't paint an interesting picture. One of the biggest, the literal poster child for the article was Hawkman, a book I know you were really enjoying. That's run, I think, longer than any Hawkman solo series has.
Yeah, it's. I think what issues are going to end on like 27 or something. It's up there. It's got a couple of volumes.
Which in and of itself is a miracle for a frickin' Hawkman book to run for like 2 years like it did. So good on it. And also to spin out of the original death metal. I think it's one of the few things that spun out of original death metal that's still going.
Yeah, maybe that's why.
Yeah. One of the other books to get the axe was Teen Titans. Again, Teen Titans has been rudderless for so long now. I didn't even know Glass wasn't even on the book anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently there's it's already like in fill-in time right now. And here's the other thing. Apparently all the big major characters aren't even in the book anymore. Like Damien isn't in the book anymore. None of the important characters are actually in the book anymore. It's just all the new ones Glass created and a few others. So I'm like, oh, so it's all the rejects now.
Yeah, so it's a book no one was reading anyway.
So literally that's a book that gets to limp to the finish line. Was probably going to get rebooted anyway, will need to be rebooted anyway, again, which, God, I fucking hate the handling of Teen Titans. We fix it, we break it, we fix it, we break it, then we go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, well, it might be a bit different now that Didio and Harris and all of those guys are out.
Could potentially be good, you're absolutely right. You know, maybe, again, some of these stories will actually have odd silver linings, like, hey, Bob Harris is gone, so maybe serial abusers won't be protected anymore. And also the 2 interim editors they brought in were both women. So, you know, hey. I mean, I would have liked to have seen the industry move that way organically, but if this was the unfortunate kick in the ass it needed, I guess here we go.
I guess so, yeah.
I guess so. Again, that wasn't the only teen book that's dying. Young Justice is getting the axe, too, which is surprising for a number of reasons, not the least of which being, hey, that's one of Brian Michael Bendis' babies. Bendis has been bulletproof for a long time, and now this is the one they're getting rid of. Huh.
Yeah, well, what's important to notice is that he's actually getting to finish the arc that he'll be telling when this issue comes out. So it will be an ending. And I think maybe it was kind of heading there anyway. It feels like it was anyway, because the team is all back together. They kind of like found out all about like the different things, where Connor was, what happened to Impulse, all that sort of stuff. So I think it feels like it was kind of winding down a little bit.
Okay, because again, I haven't been keeping up with it, and naturally my brain jumped to, oh, we can't keep paying you more than anyone else for all of these books. What's the one that's selling the least? This one? Okay, we'll get rid of that one then.
Yeah, well, and it's the only Wonder Comics book going on at the moment, and so that technically will end the Wonder Comics line. I don't think the Amethyst book is in the Wonder Comics line, even though it should be, because it's kind of spun out of this.
Yeah, you're right, because I remember looking at the cover for Amethyst #1, and I don't think it had the Wonder imprint on it at all.
Yeah, this is the other one, the Wonder Twins finished, Dial H for Hero finished, which is really weird. Those 2 series both got like extra issues and finished their entire storylines.
Different, administrations, man. Different people in charge, clearly. The Constantine book from the newly revised Vertigo line is also coming to an end, which is also like, that Vertigo line. Outside the Dreaming that I keep hearing good things about, all those other books feel slightly mishandled, don't they?
Yeah, they all kind of just like fail and just like kind of go by the wayside. No one buys them, I guess.
I mean, the people who buy them are the people who are really, really into Vertigo, but I think that audience gets smaller and smaller every year.
Oh, absolutely. And it's probably because they keep canceling the book. So they're like, oh, why do I even bother?
And they keep promising resurrections. They keep promising the world and never delivering. And again, it's just like, well, maybe Vertigo should just be allowed to be Vertigo again and not just have to be an imprint. And so, it can, rise and fall on its own merits. I mean, fuck, if things had gone differently, Vertigo might be the new Image now. Or Vertigo was Image before Image. But yeah, it's a hell of a thing. But yeah, so there's just a smattering of books. Also, there's like some other books that are coming to an end organically. Kelly Sue DeConnick's Aquaman is ending at 65, which, hey, pretty solid run.
Yeah, I saw. I'm like, really? It's on 65. Like, and it's really weird because like books like the Superman, Batman, Flash, Wonder Woman, all of them like jumped from like their 50s to like 750 or 1,000. But like
Yeah.
Aquaman just kind of kept on chugging, and it made it seem very strange. Where you've got like Wonder Woman 760, and then Aquaman 65.
Yeah, Arthur gets no love, though he will be getting a wedding issue, though, by the time this is all said and done. And, who doesn't love a superhero wedding? I mean, good for DeConnick for telling the story she wanted to tell and for telling it as long as she did. But, in the back of my mind, I cannot help but feel like, good, move her to better, bigger books now, please.
Yes, give her something very, very big. Give her a Batman book or something.
I keep saying she should write detective. Matt Fraction should write Batman. So we have a husband and wife team writing Batman. I want them to compete in the household over who has the better Batman book. I want to risk their happy marriage so I get great Batman stories. Because I'm a sick human being. That's why. Also, another book that's ending on its own steam, but kind of got put into this anyway, was Tom Taylor's Suicide Squad, which is ending at 11.
Yeah, and as well, it kind of makes sense because that'll be about the time, I guess, marketing for the new film starts ramping up. So there'll be, I imagine we'll get a team similar to what is in that movie.
Right, interesting. Huh. I mean, hey, you know what? Again, more power to him for telling the story he wanted to tell, the way he wanted to tell. It's already the best Suicide Squad story in decades.
Oh, yeah, that Deadshot issue last week was so fucking good.
Again, you can do whatever you want, Tom Taylor, and again, you're freed up to do other shit.
Mm-hmm.
Also, too, I have to wonder now that he's freed up on that team book, and because he's not exclusive, I wonder if Marvel came a call and they're like, "Hey, Tom, what do you want to write, man?"
That'd be pretty cool. Give him Avengers or something.
Again, Aaron can't write this for 10 years like he did Thor, and I imagine that would really get people excited to be like, "Hey, that guy who did Injustice you like? Well, he's doing Avengers now."
Yeah.
I'm sure he'd find a way to put
hell, if the Ultimate Universe comes back, give him the Ultimates.
Boom, there you go. Hey, now you get to play with all the Marvel characters just like you did in Injustice, only now it's Ultimate. Man, that would get me excited to fucking read the Ultimate Universe again, honestly. Because, whenever people talk about bringing the Ultimate Universe back, I'm like, I don't want to get invested again. I got invested before, and it all blew up, and it didn't matter. And yeah, there's some truly great stories there. And yeah, Ultimate Spider-Man started great and ended great and everything. But my heart, I just don't know if I can love again, Matt.
It was a very mixed bag, that series.
Absolutely. And again, too, it's like, yeah, you say that, but then Donny Cates comes through. It's like, but I did it in a Venom book, and wait till you see what I have planned.
And it looks fucking awesome.
Yeah. Oh, I have such sights to show you, such things to show you. All right. But yeah, so lots of DC books getting the axe, and that kind of sucks. And this, again, leads us into our next big story here, where Jim Lee, when they finally sat down and talked to him, and it wasn't even like a comic book publication that talked to him. It was like a bigger news group. I want to say it wasn't the New Yorker. It was one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Big boy media for big boys came and talked to him. And Jim Lee, it was a very weird interview because you could tell he was in full-on damage control mode and was desperately trying to not say anything that would rock the boat and freak people out, which, ironically, when you do that, you end up freaking people out anyway. Mm-hmm. He said, we're still going to be a company. We're still a company, everyone. Don't worry. Amid these massive layoffs and all these cancellations, everything, we are still a company, but we're going to be scaling back our line at least 25% and, probably more digital.
Yeah. Again, I can't help but feel this might be also due to the fact that they did all those digital first books and they apparently all sold very well.
Absolutely.
So I could imagine them saying, well, we can just do these and these will net us quite a bit of money and they're easy to make.
Definitely. To bring it back to what I said before, honestly, this is the way all comic companies should probably be going anyway. Mm-hmm. As it stands right now, and as we fans have been saying forever, a more digital future is bound to happen. The only problem is, the only thing that was stopping them up was Diamond Distributor, mm-hmm. and the comic store ecosystem. But now DC isn't with Diamond anymore, and they're free to do this shit because they're not beholden to anyone. I would have loved to have seen the companies do this organically and not have to have such a catastrophic kick in the ass to eventually make them do it.
Yeah.
So again, this seems, like doom and gloom. This seems like the clouds are falling. And yeah, it's going to be a weird adjustment for a little bit, no doubt about it. But honestly, in the end, 25% digital might be a good thing.
Yeah, it's also really strange to think that, like, would have all of this happened had there not been a global pandemic?
Exactly, we don't know. Well, I mean, when AT&T did come to power and became the new parent company, I remember like 6 months ago, you and I said, where it's like, what does this mean? Nothing right now. Talk to us in 6 months, and now here we are.
That's very true. I mean, I could maybe see it even being worse if there was no pandemic.
True. Again, and it's not like DC was in a great place, creatively. Like, I know you and I kept saying, it's like, oh, can we just have another crisis and another refresh? I'm so bored of most of what you're doing right now.
And it's about time for another crisis anyways. What, it's been 5 years or so?
Yeah, by January, we'll see. I mean, assuming if we're all here in January and we're not all like, I don't know, dead or something. Did you hear that news story there? Apparently scientists picked up a heartbeat in a cosmic gas cloud in space somewhere. That happened right before we started.
Yeah, Galactus is on his way, folks.
It's about goddamn time.
Sweet release.
Now, Galen, I would just like to let it be known that I can get other people to gather energy for you. Just give me a little taste of that power cosmic, huh?
Yeah, I'll become your herald per se.
Yeah, I just want to fly through the air and be a herald of Galactus. I don't even have to be one of the good ones. I can be like one of the ones where you're like, oh yeah, I guess he was one.
Yeah. As I said, Galactus is on his way here to see Tennant.
I love this. This is the work I crave. Hook it into my veins. So that's a weird story. It will be interesting to see because this is probably one of the most seismic shakeups in, like comic production that we've seen basically since you and I have been doing this online YouTube game. This could either end up being really good for DC or could end up being disastrous. I know Jerry Conway, the creator of The Punisher, writer of some of the best Daredevil stories, the man behind the night Gwen Stacy died. He actually had kind of like a doom and gloom pitch for it, and I'd be willing to listen to what he had to say considering he's been in the business for so long, where he's like, hey, don't be shocked if this time next year Marvel has like a much huger stake in a physical, if they control like 90% of the market, if AT&T continues to mismanage.
Yeah. And again, like, this goes back to like that whole diamond distribution thing where it's like, Marvel hasn't said anything about it after months.
No, they have been almost deceptively quiet.
Yeah, and they're like, for all intensive purposes, back to business as usual. We're getting comments from them every week, Yeah,
it's true. Heck, in fact, we're getting more comics sometime. Hey, here's our whole big summer event. You get a new issue every week.
Yeah. Oh, there's no Empire issue this week. I checked. I'm like, ooh, they're letting us stew over that last issue.
I guess so. Well, it was a fun issue.
Yeah.
All right. Now, one of the other big creative shifts that we saw, and I know this is something that you and I in particular, Matt, were keeping an eye on because it's something, you and I feel rather invested in, and that is the fate of Red Hood, Jason Todd. Well, as part of those solicitations, we found out the brand new creative team as of issue 51, and I must say, it's a pretty bold and pretty interesting choice, actually. I know you and I had said, hey, they should get a woman to write it. They didn't, but the team they have is pretty fucking cool.
It's a pretty good team. I'm just surprised that they continued on after this. They continued issue 51 and didn't just just reset it all. Just as an issue 1. I imagine they're gonna do that come next year. But yeah,
that's the thing. Well, the weird thing about it is that it's not Red Hood and the Outlaws. It's not Red Hood Outlaw. It's just Red Hood now.
Mm-hmm. And it could be pretty cool. It could be pretty cool.
Yeah, the cover they showed is actually very interesting because it's Jason in a sick-ass, muscle car, basically looking at his phone all sad, and he doesn't have the red helmet anymore. He has the hood, and he's back to the domino mask.
Yeah, they finally decided to change his costume from that god-awful one he's been wearing for how many years?
Oh God, since the New 52. I like the new look actually. Again, he looks a lot like the older Red Hood, and again, actually looks more heroic. The creative team that I alluded to before was Sean C. Martinborough, who was a longtime collaborator of Robert Kirkman. They did Thief of Thieves together. He worked for Milestone back in the day. He has a DC resume too, The Creeper, Detective Comics, et cetera, et cetera. And the artist is interesting too. That's going to be Tony Atkins, who worked on Jack of Fables, Hellblazer, and a lot of other interesting stuff. And some of you have probably already put two and two together before I even have to tell you, but it's like, wait, that's an all-black creative team. Yeah, it is. The first all-black creative team DC has had in literal decades.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Which I think is pretty freaking cool. And as we can see on this cover too, you know, there looks to be a new femme fatale lady in Jason's life, and also Killer Croc in a suit, which I am always a fan of.
I'm cool with Killer Croc in a suit. I haven't seen him in a suit since Hush.
Catwoman, I think. Catwoman put him in a suit when she was ever so briefly a kingpin of crime. But yeah, this looks like an interesting setup. And again, just man, Jason could be so good if they were willing to just put any time and effort on him, and you know, not put like a writer like Lebdell who was the worst.
Yeah, well, again, this could get me reading it. I'll check out that issue and just see if it's worth my time. But as well, like I kept saying, they need to like completely reinvent Red Hood and like give him like a completely new costume, a new code name, like something. Just move him on, evolve him,
like Venom, like they did with Venom in that Venom book.
Yeah, but the perfect example.
Where it's like, yeah, we reinvented the fucking wheel on this character, and yeah, I hope they reinvent the wheel with him too, because you know, I don't like not liking Jason is the thing. I like him in other stuff. He's really great. In anything Tom Taylor writes, and it's like, wow, what an interesting, component to the Bat family. If only he was written as such.
Yeah, he looks past the helmet and the guns, and goes like, there's a person under there. It's not just a thing that shoots things, and is cool.
For real, and doesn't have to be just Mr. Edgy Boy all the time. So yeah, I'm totally down for that. Totally checking that one out. What else did we have going on here? Speaking of black creative teams in DC, and John Ridley's Batman series to see the light of day. After all, this is the 12 Years a Slave guy. They made a big deal about his Batman series as part of the 5G initiative and everything else. They had rumored that Luke Fox was going to be Batman during this, but no one ever seemed to confirm it. They didn't deny it either.
No. Yeah, again, this feels like what I've been saying this whole time, where they're going to be repurposing all of this 5G stuff, and this seemingly is like the first confirmation of that.
Yep, 100%. They are repurposing it, repackaging it even. And they repackaged it with like a weird little tagline to it where it's like, hey, it'll be a mini-series. It'll be on its own over here, but it will also be very important to continuity. And I'm like, well, what the fuck is it?
Again, it's like the Three Jokers where with Jason's for books saying it's like, it's in continuity, but it's not. But it is if you want it to be, but it's not.
Yeah. Three Jokers. Goddamn, can you believe we've waited so fucking long for Three Jokers?
That comes out soon.
I know apparently. It does. I can't believe the end of the month. I do believe.
Yeah.
I cannot believe that, man. If that book doesn't like do my taxes and wash my floors, then what was the wait for?
I mean, it's Jeff Johns. He spins gold.
That's true. I mean, come on. I mean, Jeff Johns. I always thought it was true. And then, Doomsday Clock really made it true. I'm like, you mad fucking genius. You stuck the landing, you. Amid all the bullshit, how did you do that?
And then they ruined it by announcing a Rorschach tie-in.
And also kind of all the stuff they're doing in, death metal right now.
Yeah.
But even then, death metal, as we've said before, is a fucking joke and a parody.
Yeah.
And it's like making fun of itself as it's going on. But yeah, so I'm definitely interested for this book to see the light of day, and I wonder if they're kind of waiting and seeing, because like this was the only real 5G book we heard of where they're like, oh, we got a big celebrity writer here, oh, we're taking it in bold new different directions, oh, it's going to be great.
Yeah, I can't think of any any other writers that were on like 5G books. I do remember reading. I think it was meant to be for like a one shot or something. That free comic book day one shot was going to be written by an editor who I don't know if they're there anymore.
But yeah, I'm glad to see that this will see the light of day. Because even if 5G isn't a thing anymore, it is like, okay, but let me get a feel for what the plan was, though.
Yeah, I imagine they have all these stories written, and they kind of already teased 5G with Doomsday Clock, as well as like Wonder Woman stuff and Alan Scott and all this stuff. So they kind of have to do it. So they're just repackaging it all.
Yeah. You mentioned it was going to be written by an editor. Wasn't that the joke for years in the New 52, where it's like, oh yeah, who wrote this book? The editors.
Yeah, the editors. These Grant Morrison and all that are just names on a cover.
Yeah, really, who wrote it? It was really the editors who wrote it. And again, hey, I've heard some stuff from people that that's like half a joke, but like only half a joke.
Yeah, well, we had there was like a Tom King panel, and he said that Super Friends two-part in his Batman ongoing, which was the best two-parter in his ongoing, where Batman and Superman team up and go on date with their wives to that carnival. Apparently the editorial didn't want that to happen because it was too fun. It's the same editorial that didn't want Tomasi writing that carnival issue.
Oh yeah, which again makes me just raise a massive eyebrow where it's like, whoa, wait. So one of the only things in the Tom King Batman run I actually liked, even though I disliked everything else, editorial hated, but all the other bullshit that made no sense was fine.
Oh yeah. Again, they nixed that, but yeah, just didn't pay attention to anything else.
I had like a real introspective moment there. I'm like, was I wrong about Tom King? Was maybe his story good and editorial made it shit? I don't know.
You never know with these things. I mean, we probably will in a couple of years, but you never know.
Yeah, isn't that a scary thought? But yeah, and hey, you know what? John Ripley wasn't done yet because hey, bringing it back to Black Label, yeah, that's a thing that happens. What is it? His other History of the DC Universe book is also going to be coming out as well. So it was a goddamn good day for him.
Yeah, again, this was a book that we've heard about for a while. It was cancelled, and then we never heard anything, and then I guess it just come back.
It was one of the first books that they announced for DC Black Label, a lot of which also haven't seen the light of day yet. But this one actually is going to come out, and I'm like, ooh, interesting. A take on DC Universe heroes, and I can only assume because it's called The Other History, it's going to be, hey, here's the history of the DC Universe, but from minorities' point of view.
Or based on the cover, it looks like it's got Black Lightning and all different African American superheroes all over it, and Superman and Batman because they sell.
Naturally. Which, honestly, this is a pretty fucking good pitch, actually, for a series, honestly, where it's like, look, that's the history is through the eyes of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Let us see it through the eyes of someone else.
Yeah, and I'm more than happy for Jefferson Pierce to be a main character in this book.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's got a TV show. It's about time that, his stock rise a little bit. Also, I think Batman and the Outsiders is also ending, so he's going to be adrift without a book soon.
Yeah.
Oops. Sorry, Black Lightning. People like your show, though. Don't feel bad. Green Arrow had a popular show forever, and he never truly was able to parlay that into any long-lasting comic success.
Yeah.
That's another reason, too. It's like, Joel, why are you so hungry for a reboot to DC Comics? I want my goddamn Green Arrow back, and this might be the only way I get it.
Yeah, it might be. But the thing is, will they actually do a Green Arrow book? Because even, as you said, he had 8 seasons of a TV show and barely got anything.
Yeah. I'm the real villain of the next crisis. Burn it down. Burn it all down. I hope Ollie gets a new book.
Yeah, turn everyone into Green Arrows.
Yeah, really. Oh, the Green Arrowverse. Crisis on Infinite Ollies. And then Skateboarder Ollie has to
I was just about to say, that sounds like something like a skateboarder.
And then Tony Hawk joins the DC universe. I'm the Birdman. Oh my god, it already fits. Oh jeez, I'm sorry guys, Darkseid has opened up a black hole. No, Superman, it's okay. Only I can do a Christ air on the black hole around the rim and get it to close. Batman, you're a good man, Tony Hawk. I believe in you. And then he goes up into space and he starts doing the trick, and then all over the world, all the heroes as one start singing, doing everything I can, pretending I'm the Superman.
This is what death metal is building to.
This is what it's all building to. Tony Hawk saving the multiverse.
He's going to come in next issue and save the Flashes from the darkest night. Because he can skate into the Speed Force.
Absolutely. He like pulls up, hey Barry, hop onto my skateboard. I can skate faster than you can run. You can tell I just watched that documentary about Tony Hawk and the creation of those video games. It's called Pretending I'm Superman. Go check it out if you're interested. It's actually pretty cool. And a total marketing tool because they're remastering the first two games.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's good. It's good shit. Again, if you like video game documentaries. What else do we got going on here? So again, keep it on the Batman tip as we are. John Ridley, he's getting a mini-series for whatever his ideas are. James Tynion is getting to stick on the book past when we originally thought he would be. We thought he'd be done at 100. We know in 100 he's going to be doing something with Grifter where it's like, okay, now you're just at the height of your power. Do whatever you want, Grifter.
Yeah, Grifter's coming to join the Bat family or something, or coming to Gotham for a while.
Or something, who knows? Then it's like, okay, well, what do you got for issue 102? I'm okay, new story. A brand new character called Ghostmaker.
He has created so many new characters in the last, I want to say 5 issues.
He really has. I mean, they're all pretty good. I mean, they're all interesting.
We don't know jack shit about any of them at the moment, but yeah.
No, that's true. I mean, Punchline was clearly a huge seller just by looking at eBay, so I wonder if they're like, hey, James, can you do that again? Can you create another character that we can build a lot of buzz around?
It's funny, I think it was the main DC account asked, in the last year, who's been your favorite new character? And there's all these people were saying Punchline. I'm like, don't know anything about the character. She's appeared once.
It's like literally she's the only new character you can think of, and then when I stop and think about it, I'm like, I can't think of any new characters in any DC books that even leave
the Revolutionaries.
Sort of... Oh yeah.
The Air, Wink.
They're a team though. That's the problem. They're a bunch of characters. You can't just put that on.
And again, as well, we don't know a lot about them either.
That's true. We're only getting little bits of information. Now that being said, Tom Taylor said even though his Suicide Squad is coming to an end, you haven't seen the last of the Revolutionaries, which is interesting.
Yeah, well, no, they're in the Deceased book at the moment.
I was going to say, is he just referring to the fact that you can read about them in Deceased, or is he saying they're going to be getting a spin-off, or what?
Well, yeah, maybe they'll come into Deceased Dead Planet because they're in that digital version at the moment.
Indeed, they are. But yeah, outside them, I can't think of any new characters. But yeah, Ghostmaker looks cool, and also I guess is he Ghostmaker because he kills people and makes them into ghosts, or is he a ghost who makes stuff?
Yeah, can he make ghosts?
Is this a space ghost coast to coast style situation? I love his color scheme though. I love the pale green over the white with the little black accents.
Very, very anime antagonist looking.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Matt. That's another thing that I think brings together all of Tynion's new creations on Batman, and I think it's perfectly expressive of how much younger he is than the last couple Batman head writers, because all of his new creations are anime as fuck.
Yeah, and they're great. They look great.
Yeah. Like even the designer, which I'm like, this guy's a little over-designed. Then he said, my inspiration was a Metal Gear villain. I'm like, oh yeah, he's a fucking Metal Gear villain. Yep,
yeah.
I get it now.
Yeah, he's like Revolver Ocelot.
100%, even down to his insane over-the-top plan. Punchline again. Oh, you're the anime girl. I get it. You're the crazy anime girl. Yeah, I totally buy it. And even the clown killer or clown hunter guy. I'm like, yeah, you're like one of the guys from Gantz. Yeah, I see it.
Yep.
Yeah, right on. And Ghostmaker too, again, yeah, you're a cool tech samurai with not one sword, but 2 swords.
Yeah, 2. That's important to note. He has 2 swords. He's double the badass.
You gotta have 2 swords, and he's got the assassin cape there where you see one arm, but what's he doing with his other arm, Matt? You don't know. It could be anything.
He's flipping you off.
Yeah, really, he's just flipping you off. He takes out his hand. It's a chainsaw. Chainsaw hand. Yeah, I have no idea what this is going to mean for Tynan's run. I'm happy he got to stay on there, and here's hoping, where they're like, okay, you get to stay on the book. Maybe now he gets to, maybe slow down and tell more personal stories, or just, kind of go for broke now. And it's like, well, I didn't think I'd be on this book this long, so
Yeah.
so let me do something crazy. Let me tell you about
what could I
Ghostman.
get fired off from?
Yeah, because I didn't think I was gonna be here to begin with. So yeah, fuck it, let's do some crazy shit. Let's go fucking nuts. Let's get nuts in this world that's still without Alfred.
Yeah, for now.
Ghostmaker is Alfred. He's the actual ghost of Alfred. Man, if I'm right, or if that becomes a thing and Alfred does actually factor into this story, you all owe me $5.
Well, again, I said like people were saying that Designer was Alfred.
Yeah. Which would have been silly, but also very comic book, and I'd be like, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
That's something that I could see. Yeah, man, the actual twist with Designer was funny, where it's like, no, it was actually Joker, and this B plot was actually the A plot all along. That was some funny shit. Oh man, speaking of Joker War, I know we said we weren't really going to talk about comics this week, but I tried to read some of the tie-ins. Boy, the tie-ins are kind of a mess.
What tie-ins are there? Because I know all I know is that there's Detective Comics, which apparently is going to end up being like the main tie-in.
Yes. Okay, so I read that this week.
That was Batwoman, wasn't it?
Yes, which the Batwoman stuff is really cool, and I'm like, yeah, she's back in Gotham helping out. And then they totally ruin it by having Batman be part of that story, because the whole crux of Joker War is, oh, I'm alone, I'm all drugged up and beat, and I don't have my family and my gadgets. And literally in the first 5 pages, hey, Batwoman, want to team up? I have some gadgets again, and I'm not beaten up or on drugs anymore.
Oh, god damn it.
So already that one fucked up. And again, it's like clearly either Tomasi didn't know or he just didn't care enough because it was hijacking his own story.
Yeah, well, again, this could be like an editorial thing where it's like we have this big event and we need tie-ins, but the way James Tynan's writ it is that there can't be tie-ins because Batman needs to be alone for the whole story.
Well, what they kind of do with it is, like, remember in the last issue, Batman's like, oh, Joker has seized all these important places all over the city. He's seized Wayne Enterprises, and he's having them 3D print weapons. Well, Batwoman and him have to go and break up that factory.
Why couldn't it just be Batwoman?
I know, right? The story would have been 100% better if it was just Batwoman. Having Batman in the story legitimately made it worse.
Yeah, again, all you do is you go, it's like Batman's like uncontactable at the moment. Like we don't know where he is, so like, we've seen all these weapons Joker is giving his men, so we're just gonna go to Wayne Enterprises or wherever and attack their base.
And it'd be great too, because it's like you do it, and then you literally have them all just talking shit about Batman the whole time. Like, I can't believe he pushed me away. I can't believe the last conversation we had. Well, I'm here to save his ass and save the city, basically. That would have been perfect.
Yeah. Or instead of doing it about the Bat family, you do it about like Clown Killer, since we got introduced to him and we haven't seen them since.
Absolutely, yeah. Apparently the next one is going to be Killer Croc focused, and Batman's going to be in that one too. And I'm like, that's unfortunate. Now let me tell you where the other ones are fucking up. So I picked up Nightwing for the first time in forever because apparently by the end of this story he's supposed to be like back to Dick Grayson again. He's not at this. Apparently he fought Punchline in the previous issue and she like drugged him, so now he's getting all Joker-fied. And Barbara comes to the city to help him, but Joker-fied Rick Grayson turns on her, and it's like a 3-on-1 fight, and she gets defeated at the end of it. I'm like, oh, that's unfortunate. None of it takes place in Gotham, though. This all apparently takes place before Joker War. But then it gets even stupider, Matt, because then I read the Batgirl tie-in, and the Batgirl tie-in is literally the Joker trying to restage Killing Joke, him coming to Barbara's house to shoot her again, and they have a big old fight in her kitchen and everything, and they fight all over the place.
Okay.
And then, like, that issue ends with them both beaten up and everything. I'm like, really? So, in both the Batgirl one and in the Nightwing one, it's both Batgirl fighting Joker? Seriously?
So, from what I'm hearing, it's just basically... So, you got James Tynan talking about, like, he did that really great thing with Joker where it's basically... Yeah, you kind of know what my plan is going to be, but it's going to be like different enough that, like, something new. He's not doing what Joker usually does. Whereas all the tie-ins is what Joker would usually do.
Absolutely.
Which
The
which
tie-ins.
that again that feels like writers not talking with one another.
Oh, that's 100% what it is. The themes and ideas expressed by the tie-ins run in complete opposition to what the main story is, to the point where it's really fucking laughable, where it's like, oh, these were never meant to have tie-ins, but you forced it to have tie-ins.
Yeah, again, it sounds like maybe writers got like a brief outline for Joker War, and they're like, it's Batman versus Joker across like Gotham. Well, we'll treat it like a standard generic tie-in.
Even the idea too of calling it what is it, Joker War? Was this even supposed to be an event?
It doesn't feel like it. Just feels like it was meant to be just a Batman story. Because it was
Yeah.
only because in the Batman book, it's gonna be over very quickly on issue 100, and we're already issue 97.
Yeah, for real. As DNG in the chat brings up, you've had 35 years to come up with new ideas for Batgirl and the Joker. I know, right?
Nah, can't. I've got to keep referencing that one story.
For all the I feel like people don't even remember this one now because it's been so long, and I think people were even mad at it when it happened. I give Gail Simone all the credit in the world for when she went back to that well, she at least told a story about one of the henchmen who was there that night. So it's like it actually wasn't about them, it was about another person who was there, and I'm like, cool, see, that's different and new.
Yeah, you do stuff like that.
Yeah, find a new vantage point. Do anything with it. But yeah, the tie-ins for there have been a bit of a mess. But hey, again, keeping on the Batman tip, because this Batman train don't stop this week, apparently. It was also announced in the solicitation that Punchline is going to be getting, I don't know if it was a solo series or just a special one-shot, but there's going to be an official Punchline book now.
Yeah, it was a one-shot, and yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it does somehow make it into a series.
Because apparently people just cannot get enough of this Punchline.
Yeah, again, this book's gonna sell for thousands of dollars. Like that one goddamn like cover of a book she wasn't even in.
Yeah, it's wacky. And again, I can't say I don't like Punchline because we barely know enough about her to make an actual educated guess.
Yeah, but yeah, well, from what I've seen, she's different enough from Harley Quinn that she's not exactly the same. But yeah, we don't know any. I don't get how people do this. They just glob onto characters they know literally nothing about and think they're the best thing ever. We don't even know that.
Well, it's funny, we haven't seen something like this in a long time. Usually it's the opposite. Usually people glom on in a hateful way to a character without even reading or learning anything about them. Here, this character has only been met with positivity and rapturous applause. I'm like, but you haven't done anything yet.
Again, I think it's because she's like edgy, but what these people don't seem to understand is it's James Tynan's like satirical critique on those type of people with her. He's
making fun of you. If you really like Punchline, he's making fun of you.
Yeah, because of course you like these type of characters. He's like, she literally says we live in a society.
Literally says it. As Zeke in the chat says, is Punchline Asian or white? I do believe she's Asian, I want to say. At least that's how she was drawn in one of the few scenes we see her without her makeup. Yeah, she looks like a nice drawing. That's enough for me. You know what, Luis? You might be onto something. I don't know. I think that is a way that a lot of comic fans act. That's a nice drawing. Unlike, say, something like Rogol Zar, where it's like, that design is bad and busy and I don't like it.
Yeah.
Which I will admit was like the first like 20% of why I didn't like Rogol Zar. Then I read more of the character and then I'm like, oh, okay, so this character's a bad design and sucks. But, I waited that long to decide that it sucked. Yeah, I mean, that's more or less all the news that was fit to print this week. A lot of shit, man. A lot of all DC-centric stuff.
Yeah, they had a big week, and I guess they're going to have like another big week this coming week with Fandom, which will be very, very interesting to see how that plays out now.
Yeah, that's going to be on Saturday, the 22nd, which, hey, we do a show Sunday normally, so that's good. So we'll have lots of time to talk about that.
Yeah, well, I know, like, because of, like, the time differences and stuff, I think, like, before we start the show, like, the last couple of panels finish, I think that's how I've worked it out. I'm just trying to think if I did work it out right. I've got it all, like, because you can, like, put them all in your calendar, all your different ones, and I put them all the ones I want to see in the calendar.
I will say that, fandom really is capturing what it means to be a convention, because I look at the convention schedule there and I'm like, oh, that's a lot. I'm not going to make it to any of these.
And they're online, which is really weird. Like, you're not actually like, oh, I've got to run up the other side of the convention hall and
Yeah,
go
yeah.
to this other building on the other side of town or something.
It's all going to be on my computer, but I just throw up my hands and I'm like, oh, can I just read about it later? Can someone just, put the bullet points down for me?
Well, that's the thing. Apparently, the panels play twice. They like have
Oh,
their premiere, and then I think later on in the day or the next day they have an encore. But I don't think they're gonna stay online.
interesting.
So someone's gonna fucking record them and chuck them
Oh,
up
yeah,
on YouTube unlisted. But yeah,
yeah, without a doubt. And I mean, too, it's like obviously they're gonna have some trailers. In fact, hey, because this is the first show we're gonna be doing before fandom, let's take some bets. And hey, you know what, chat, you guys get involved in this one too, because I'd like to hear what you all have to say. What's something we really want? What's something we're certain we're gonna get? And what's something that might surprise us? I'm gonna say Suicide Squad trailer. We're gonna get James Gunn's Suicide Squad trailer in this.
I think that was a given, mainly because that teaser he released kind of like hinted that we'll be getting a teaser or poster or something.
Right, and that they hadn't seen it yet. So that's something I definitely like. Maybe some more stuff on that Suicide Squad video game. Maybe it'll be very Suicide Squad
I
heavy.
think we're getting something about that tomorrow.
Right,
Or not tomorrow, like tomorrow, as in when we record this. So
right,
it'll be a couple of days after.
right. Do you think we're going to be seeing like some substantial some substantial crossover between movie Suicide Squad and video game Suicide Squad, because they're coming so close together? Like, I bet, hey, pre-order and get the movie skins.
Probably, but I think they're going to keep it pretty reduced in terms of who the characters are in the game. I think it's just going to be your usual Harley Quinn, Deadshot, Captain Boomerang maybe, and then maybe, I don't know, King Shark or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right. GNG says new creative teams. I don't know. Is it too early for new creative teams, Matt, considering that death metal is going to be taking us till at least fucking January?
Well, considering when I was looking through the schedule, they had one to be announced panel, which I have a feeling it's probably something movie or TV related.
Right.
But I noticed the distinct lack of comic book stuff.
Yeah,
Like there is
yeah.
some stuff, but like it seems to be like kind of fluff stuff, like advertisement for death metal. The stuff with Scott Snyder and Jim Lee's doing a lot of like panels.
Yeah, it seemed mostly more entertainment stuff than comic stuff. Assassin Heroes said big if, but maybe something static related. Yeah, something milestone related in general, now that that's actually coming off the ground now. And if you were to actually release some news about that and show that, it would probably go over really well.
Yeah, or especially now.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, Zeke says we're definitely going to get a trailer for what is it, the Snyder cut, and maybe even talking about Zack Snyder's cut too. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck about that.
Yeah.
We saw the design of his new Steppenwolf, and it just looks like broken glass became sentient.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it
Like,
looks better.
it gets rid. No, it doesn't. It looks less comic book accurate. Say what you will about the Steppenwolf we got, but at least it looked like the Steppenwolf from the comics.
Yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I guess it looks like a better monster, but looks no more like Steppenwolf than the other one did.
Yeah.
DC Universe officially merging with HBO Max. Yeah, they're gonna have to answer that question. If they were smart, they would be like, "Hey, anyone who still has a DC Universe account and has put money on it for the month, we're gonna give you a free month of HBO Max. How about that?"
I think they'll be integrating it into part of like get HBO Max Plus, and it gives you like access to the comics or something.
Right.
'Cause that's
right,
all
right.
that. That's all that's got going for. Every other show has gone over to CW or has been cancelled or has gone to HBO Max.
Yeah. Ooh, to hype up the interview that you're going to be seeing right after this. What is it, when we're done here? I talked to Justin Halpern, the executive producer of Harley Quinn, and I'm like, hey, so season 3, right? Because everyone fucking loved the first 2 seasons, and you did 2 seasons back to back. What are the odds of a 3rd season? He didn't even know. Is the thing, which I'm like, oh, that's either really good or really bad. But yeah, I definitely want to see some more stuff on the animation side. I want season 3 of Harley. Maybe some word on Young Justice season 4.
Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna get any of that. I saw like all of the stuff that had been announced so far, and I don't think they're gonna be announcing anything else because it was a pretty full schedule. I think there was even overlap on some stuff.
Right. Oh yeah, isn't there also like that Green Lantern HBO show and that cop show in Batman universe?
Yeah, we'll be getting stuff from Matt Reeves as the Batman, so I imagine
Oh,
we'll
that'd
be
be good.
getting like probably a teaser for that because that's almost finished shooting.
Can we get Robert Pattinson to walk out in costume?
Well, he's gonna be there. He's gonna be
There you go.
there.
Get your ass in the
Well,
costume,
he
Pattinson.
would have been there because they filmed it all earlier. So yeah,
Previously recorded before.
yeah. I know we're getting panels for all the CW shows,
There we go.
including the new Superman and Lois show, which is supposed to be debuting
Nice.
in January apparently.
That'll be good. Do you think we'll see anything from Ezra the Choker Miller?
I don't know. Well, they've been like quite quiet on that.
Well, they have, but then you see all these things on Instagram where it's like, oh, you can be a hero too, and it was Margot Robbie with a bunch of Harley Quinn cosplayers, and then it was Ezra Miller with a bunch of Flash cosplayers, and that obviously had a lot of people going like, so they're still in your good graces, huh? Not getting rid of them? That okay. Just kind of feels like, if you would ever get rid of someone for any reason, it's because you literally have them on tape attacking someone.
As D&G points out, or he pointed out that The Rock is going to drop the People's Elbow on Zachary Levi, but
Yeah,
I think we are getting Black Adam stuff.
that would be nice. Yeah, because I guess that's coming sooner than we think.
Yeah, and I imagine we'll get like I guess we kind of have like a Shazam 2, like it's been kind of confirmed that we're going to be getting it, but yeah.
I'd like to hear some more about that. Yeah, everyone, I mean, I guess at that point here, we'll start bringing the show to a close. Again, stick around if you're watching the YouTube version of this. I have a wonderful interview with Justin Halpern of Harley Quinn. We talk about the show. We talk about animation. Oh, it's so good and so fun. You're going to love it.
Awesome.
All right, so with that, everyone, thank you for joining us. And Joel in the past, will now throw over to me, Joel, at another time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
And hello and welcome everyone to another Comic Multiverse interview segment. And oh boy, we got a hell of a one for you today, people. I am so excited that I get to talk to the man I get to talk to right now. He is a screenwriter, he is a best-selling author, and he is the executive producer on a show I know all of you love, just judging by the views it gets on my channel. That person is Justin Halpern. Or is it Halpern? This is probably a terrible time to ask this question, but I'm doing it now.
It's Halpern. It's Halpern. Sorry about that.
Okay. Halpern. All right. I didn't know
Yes.
if you pronounced
no
the P or
problem.
not. People are always mispronouncing my last name, so I guess I'm a little bit more sensitive to that.
Yeah, no, I think it's weird. It's like I think that there's so many variations of Halpern that I think people just kind of like say whichever one they hear the most, and that's okay.
Yeah, no doubt. So, again, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me today for a bit. I really appreciate it. We were in contact a little bit over Twitter, obviously, when Harley Quinn was coming out there for the DC Universe app, and of course now is the perfect time to get you on the show because you can now watch both seasons of it on HBO Max as well, so like a whole new crop of people are discovering it all over again.
Yes, that's been really awesome because DC Universe was pretty niche, and it was this thing where the people who were seeing it really liked it, or they were pirating it, which doesn't let DC Universe know that people are watching it. But either way, people were seeing it, and I was happy because DC Universe wasn't even like available to a lot of people. So I understood them trying to, if they wanted to see it, getting it whatever way they could. But now on HBO Max, it feels almost like the show just launched.
You had a soft launch and a hard launch is what it is.
Yes, exactly.
Very, very Tech Valley. So I guess to start this off properly, a good place to begin with is, tell the people out there who maybe aren't too familiar with yourself, your own entertainment origin story, because, I kind of know your roots, and your story is genuinely fascinating.
Yeah, it's definitely I always feel like everybody has a weird story of how they broke into the business, but I tend to feel mine is maybe one of the weirder ones. Yeah, so I was like I wanted to be a screenwriter. I waited tables for a long time in LA until I was from probably like 21 to around 27. And then I got a job writing for magazines at like 28. And then I was like, I had a girlfriend. She was living in San Diego, which is where I'm from. And I was living in LA, and we were kind of doing long distance. And I got this magazine job. And so I said, well, I can do it from anywhere. So I just sort of showed up at her apartment being like, I took this new job. Let's move in together. And she was like, I think we need to break up. So I moved home with my dad and mom in San Diego because I didn't really know where else I could go. And I started this Twitter account called Shit My Dad Says, where I would write down one thing my dad said that day, each day. And that Twitter account took off, and I wrote a book that became a best-selling book. And when I sold the book, TV studios like Warner Brothers and different studios started calling, asking if they could adapt it. I was kind of like, I was like, I want to be a part of it. I know I've never worked in TV. I have a partner, Patrick Schumacher, who I had been partners with. We'd been working like pretty unsuccessful in feature films.
Right.
We'd sold one and optioned another, but not enough to live on. And so Shit My Dad Says was my first foray into TV. The show was very bad, but we got to be on staff of it and learn. And from there, we started to build our career, and that was like our first step.
I relate to that so much because my parents and the shit they say is a huge inspiration to myself as well. In fact, on my channel today, I came out with a new video. My mom reacts to every Avenger, so I sat her down and showed her, like, hey, here's every person who's been an Avenger from, like, 1961 to 1991. What's your take on this, Mom?
Yeah, I don't think I could get my parents to sit for that. to watch those movies.
I'm very persuasive is the thing. That's my superpower. But yeah, so that's a hell of an origin story, and from there, you eventually started getting involved with some more DC and comic book related properties. You were actually one of the people behind the short-lived Powerless show, weren't you?
Yeah, so that show, that was about like 7 years after Shit My Dad Says, and at that point, Patrick and I had been running shows. Like we had our own show on Fox that was called Surviving Jack, and we had an overall deal at Warner Brothers. And so that was a Warner Brothers show, and the creator of that show, Ben Queen, he created the show, and I think like NBC and Ben just had like a completely different idea of what they wanted the show to be. Ben had a really strong vision of what he wanted it to be, and I think NBC had a different vision. And so then when they parted ways, we were under contract at Warner's, and Warner's was like, you need to take this show over. And it was kind of awkward and a little uncomfortable because we really liked Ben. We didn't want to take the show over. We were kind of like put in this strange position. We did. We ended up running that show, and we tried to make the version of it that we could make.
Right.
But it was definitely learning on the fly. It was tough. It was a tough situation. A great cast.
Oh yeah.
And I think Ben had like smartly put together a really interesting world. And so we, I think that show, as we got further down the line in that show, we started to figure out what version of it worked for us by like episode 7, 8, 9. And I think that's when the show starts to become a little stronger.
Right.
But the cast was amazing, and we'd worked with DC. That was our first time working with DC. And we were like, I think after we were done with that show, maybe even during that show, they had approached us. They were like, hey, do you want to do an R-rated animated Harley Quinn show?
No kidding. I did not know that part of the origin story.
Yeah, so they called me and Patrick and were like, would you be interested in this? This is before DC Universe even existed.
Wow.
So this was going to be this is 2016, so this is something we were gonna like take out to like other networks.
That's
you know?
amazing.
Yeah, it was before Suicide Squad. It was like right before. And so we were like, yes. My partner Patrick is like an enormous comic book fan, like as big as they get.
I was going to say, yeah, among the two of you, who's the biggest fan? Because as, you know, a fan myself and as someone who follows the show, man, the deep cuts and the references, oh my God.
Yeah. So we have a couple people on staff who are like intense comic book fans. Patrick being one of them. So like most of the Easter eggs that you see in the show are things that like Patrick put in there. My level of like comic book fandom was, you know, I think probably like more than your average person, obviously, but I was by no means an aficionado, and I had to really like bone up. Like I knew a lot about Harley because I was a huge Batman the Animated Series fan,
yeah.
you know? And I had read some of the New 52, like Jimmy and Amanda stuff.
Yeah, that's the good stuff. Big Jimmy fan.
Yeah, and so Jimmy and Amanda stuff was really like a inspiration and a launching point for us, just tonally.
Definitely.
Right? Like it was like, I think they kind of had leaned more into Harley being an anti-hero, you know? And I think we kind of wanted to make her more of a criminal. We wanted to keep her more as a criminal, but other than that, the like tone of what they were doing was an inspiration for us to take it and run with it.
Absolutely.
And Amanda even did a lot of the very early character designs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so she did really, really early ones. And then Jen Coyle and Shane Glines worked off of those and created their own stuff. And Shane Glines is like, he's our character designer, and he's like a disciple of Bruce Timm.
So I can tell.
Yeah, so Shane's style is very much in that. But yeah, so then we were getting ready to pitch Harley to like all the big streaming services. And then as we were kind of like coming up with the pitch, and we were on Powerless, so we had to put Harley on hold. When we were done with Powerless, they were like, hey, we're launching our own streaming service, DC Universe. And here's our we think you should do Harley here. And if you do Harley here, if you come in and at this point we'd already come up with a pitch, and we pitched Warner Brothers what we wanted to do.
Right.
And they were like, if you do Harley here, we'll pick it up for 2 seasons, and you can get working, and you won't have like a bunch of different executives giving you tons and tons of notes. You'll just have one set. They'll make the show with you. And that's the one thing, like, I think when people always point out to me, they're like, how'd you get away with this? How'd you get away with that? I think a lot of times there are tons of bad TV executives in the universe, but I think it's good to point out when you have really, really good ones.
Yeah.
And on this show, the two things that happened that allowed this show to be what it was is the old head of comedy at Warner Brothers, Aaron Warenberg and Wendy Steinhoff, who are the executives, were like, look, we don't really understand this world. And we've never worked on a show like this one because there wasn't really anything like it.
No,
they were
not
like,
at all.
So we're not going to try to like fit you into our own box. We're going to like take our hands off the wheel and let you make what you want to make with the two animation executives who we're working with, who are Peter Girardi and Audrey Deal at Warner's Animation, who were like, we love this show. We know what you're making. We're going to help you make it. And so it was this like Aaron and Wendy at WBTV completely taking their egos out of it, which almost never happens.
That's so heartwarming to hear.
Yeah, they're just fantastic, smart individuals who are very confident in their own abilities, so they don't feel the need to like put their hands in everything. And then Peter and Audrey let us like just go to town. I mean, I remember we were in this meeting. Stop me if I'm rambling. But
No, please go ahead. This is the show, man.
We were sitting in this meeting with Jeff Johns.
Nice.
This is back when he was the head of DC.
Yeah.
And Ames Kirshen, who was also in charge of like basically all the IP at DC. And Jeff was just like, make the show funny. That's like all I really care about. Just make the show. I just want. Basically, he wanted the world to see DC has a sense of humor.
Definitely,
you know?
which was very much needed. We talk about that all the time on this show. Self-seriousness.
Yeah. and also remember DC in 2016, right? Like
Yeah.
DC in 2020 is much different than DC in 2016.
Oh, night and day.
DC in 2016 is not making Aquaman, is not making that version of Wonder Woman. Like they're still making the like really gritty, you know. So everybody at DC was like a little nervous, you know. They're like, this show is like wall to wall jokes, and so, you know, but they stuck by it. They were like, they were nervous with our version of Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah,
and they were like,
who's a sad drunk, which I love that version because it's like, yeah, that's what he would be if he actually lived in Gotham City, if he was a real person. And man, Maloney, I freaking love Maloney as a comedy actor, and I'm glad that he really got a chance to stretch his comedy muscles in this show.
yeah, Maloney was the lead of one of this Fox show that we had. That was a few years before, and he was so gifted and just like somebody we really genuinely liked and had warm feelings toward. And so when we said, we were like, look, Chris, this version of Commissioner Gordon, it's going to be like every day of his life is like the movie Seven. So he's like on edge. He's got a drinking problem. He's not processing. He's also like full of a lot of like toxic masculinity.
Oh, yeah.
So he's not going to go to therapy. He's not going to like, he's bottling all that shit up inside, and he wants a friend. And Chris, I got it. And then he gave that performance of Commissioner Gordon, which is like, I think with a lot of the characters in the show, we are taking what's canon and kind of stretching it, right? Like it's a version of what you've seen, but through Harley's eyes. But with Gordon was one of the only ones, and King Shark was one of the only ones where we were like, hey, this is a completely different take.
Right.
Like, this is not at all, and Bane, this is not at all.
Who was also one of my favorites.
Yes, James Adomian is like such a great voice performer, and he really helps create Bane.
Steals every scene he's in.
Yeah, he is great. And I remember we sat in this meeting we took a meeting with Jeff and Ames and Margot Robbie, because Margot was doing Birds of Prey, but it was like they were just starting like the script, and she just wanted to hear like what we were doing to make sure it wasn't what they were doing.
That's so cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we sat and we pitched the whole show to Margot a couple different times. We had a couple different meetings with her when we'd like get more stuff. And Margot, I remember her turning to Jeff after the first meeting and being like, isn't this close to what we're doing? And Jeff was like, trust me, tonally, this is like completely different from what you're doing. And she was like, okay. And they let us do it.
That's so fun that she's so hands-on. I'd always heard that, but I didn't know how much of that was just, spin. But no, she really cares that much. That's super cool.
Yeah, no, she was like really, she is very hands-on in what she was doing. And like, yeah, I was shocked she wanted to like hear what we were doing, because we were just this little fucking cartoon, and she's making this big, giant movie. But I think she took a lot of ownership in the character, I remember like she was like doing promotion for I, Tonya, and
which is an excellent movie.
Yes, such a good movie. She came straight from a press event, and she was wearing like a $5,000 like Versace like suit that looked. It was like she looked like, and I'm sitting there with Dean and Patrick and a couple other writers, and we looked like just like total shit. And it was like a scene in Game of Thrones where like a peasant like holds something up to the queen and being like, "Is this okay?"
That's amazing. I love everything about that. You mentioned the characters too, and how you kind of did your own interesting spin on them, but how they were also informed by continuity in comics. I think my favorite thing, again, to bring it back to Gordon, is that you make him this sad Seven style drunk, and yet him being such a schlub really helps in Barbara's development in season 2 and her choice to become Batgirl, not only for herself but to restore her father's own belief in heroism. And man, that touched my heart so well. And I remember like watching that as a comic fan. I'm like, this is better than anything they've given her in the comics in like a decade.
Yeah, it was funny. Like we wanted to So our thought process in that, I'm glad you pointed out, our thought process in that was like, she doesn't, it's a classic thing of like, you wish your parents were better. You know, she's been watching him fight crime and kind of fail in our show.
Yeah.
For a long time, and how it's like beaten him down. So it felt to us like this natural progression that ultimately she would be like, well, I got to do it then. If he can't do it, like, I have to do it, you know? And so, but like, she still loves her father. And it's a testament to Brie Cuoco, who voices her, Haley's sister, and Maloney. Like, they recorded all those scenes separately. I don't think they've even met.
That's crazy.
But they were still able to like build those performances in that relationship, and I thought I was really happy with how it came out.
The way the Harley show is able to seamlessly balance the ha-ha-ha wacky off-the-wall comedy, and then every so often really gut punch you with some serious emotional content, I think is, really a testament to the special sort of show you made here and why it truly caught on the way it did. I know early on the show got a lot of very positive comparisons to like Venture Brothers, and even in the sadder moments like BoJack Horseman. I just thought was that always the intent going in there, where it's like, nah, we're gonna get him with the laughs, that's the honey, and then boom, we're actually gonna say something.
Yeah, it really, I mean, it's great to hear that people felt like that, because that was our intention. I think the thing that we were like, okay, we can't, especially in the first season, we're like, we can't run from the fact that Harley is in a very abusive relationship, right, with the Joker. Like, it's really abusive. And if you like ha-ha your way through abuse, in my opinion, you're putting something out into the world that is bad. You're putting something harmful out into the world, right? So we were like, okay, how do we make a show that tonally can handle the fact that she's been through like trauma, things that people and women in the world have been through.
Oh yeah.
And how do we also have a show that has jokes and has laughs? And I think that was the thing we were constantly thinking about. And the way we break the stories is we'd start with what is the like emotional movement and through line in the season, and what is it each episode? How is she growing? How, like, and we would, there was a lot of women on staff who had been in relationships that were bad and some even abusive. And it was like this thing where I remember when we were breaking out the season, one of the women on staff was like, she's going to have a backslide. Like, she's got to have some moment where she feels weak and she feels less than, and she has this backslide to her abuser. Like, she lets this guy trick him into this.
And that's episode 7 of season 1. Yes, I do believe.
Right. Yeah. And so we built that in. We were like, yes, that needs to be in there. And so I think it was having a staff that was not afraid to talk about things like that. Yeah. For things to get like serious. And then once you have the emotional through line, you can where to hang the humor, where to hang the jokes, because you're not just like hanging them up and then trying to figure out, and here's how I'm going to dance through all of them. You're like, no, here's the through line first, here's the emotional through line, and now it's easy to see where the jokes go.
Totally. I mentioned this in my own video reviews, and you can tell me if I'm digging way too deep in this or if I've struck gold. There seemed to be this recurring falling motif in Harley Quinn. She, gives up herself to the Joker, falls in the acid, and then falls out of the plane. Then later with Harley and Ivy in season 2 in Bane's prison, chooses to fall in order to, save her and everything. Am I onto something there, or am I just having a fever dream?
No, you're definitely onto something, and I can't take any credit for that. That was our animators. That was I remember Jen Coyle and Ceci Aronovich. They were two of our like lead, and Colin Heck, who directed the episode that were in Bane's Pit. They all just kept referencing things that they had come up with in other episodes. And I remember when we did episode 5, when they go into Harley's mind. The first, and she thinks her origin story is that she was Joker pushed her into the vat of acid. Right. She's lied to herself so many times that that's how she remembers it. And then when she actually sees it, so she sees herself falling, right? It's like this, and, you know, I'm getting way too into the weeds too, but in terms of how we felt about it, it was like, when you're being pushed, when you fall, you have no agency. It's you and the air, and there's nothing you can do, right? But when you choose to jump, you are making a choice, right? You have some agency. So you'll see, like, and the animators were the ones who were, like, latched onto that. And, like, you know, when she decides in Bane's pit, she decides to jump. You see her. She's got a smile on her face as she's, like, heading towards her death. Whereas when she's pushed out of the helicopter in episode 9, she's miserable. She's got this, like, terror. When she remembers herself being pushed, even though it's not real, she's miserable. She has this, like, fear, right? So that was a big thing for us.
And it was amazing, you know, it really gave me goosebumps. And, you know, too, especially as a comic fan and a comic reader who saw, you know, who was there basically when DC decided in the New 52 to make this big turn from, like, okay, you know, Harley Quinn is like henchwoman and anti-villain to more of an anti-hero. And I always thought, I'm like, this is a good idea, and I understand why, you know, she's the fourth pillar and everything now of DC Comics. But I wish you guys had more time to sit down and really break and write this. In the show, I think, one of my favorite things about it is that it learned from, you know, all the growing pains in the comics of her making that turn. And honestly, I think it tells Harley's turning story better in 2 seasons of television than it did in years worth of comics. I really do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, you know, we definitely, like, I want to give, like, a lot of due to the work that had been done in the comics, because I think that it's one of those things where I think the first movement they made with Harley it's very tough to make that first jump. It's like a lot harder to go from where it was to what they did than from what they did to what we did. I think we had a lot more, like, latitude.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, what they were doing in the comics, it was the first time anyone was doing that with her character. So, and they were kind of, like, building it from, again, like, people remember, but it's like she wasn't born in the comics. She's not from the 1960s. Like, no. She was born in an animated show where she, you know, that's where you first saw her. So a lot of the stuff that was being built, it was being built for the first time. Definitely. So I just want to give so much credit to like Jimmy and Amanda and the people who were really, like, working on creating what is known as Harley Quinn.
Definitely. I love the stuff with her family too. I mean, Charlie Adler just killing it as her father, because that's another one of the things in the comics where her family is very vague, and because DC crises all the time, it's hard to keep it straight. But I truly think the Harley Quinn show invented the definitive Harley family.
We tried. That episode was a real tough one. Like, we broke it and rebroke it and wrote it and rewrote it several times, because we were just like, what do we want to say? Like, anytime you see somebody's family, like, you're saying a lot about the character. Like, you're it's like almost an origin story, more so than even the origin story that led to them being whatever supervillain or superhero they were. Right. So we were like, you know, what does this look like? Like, we wanted it to not just be like her dad was a piece of shit and her mom, you know, it's like this family had this, like, insidious relationship where they were all kind of just looking out for themselves, and there was no sense of actual family. What we wanted at the end of that episode is we wanted you to feel what Harley's feeling, which is that she has no real family except for her crew. Those are the people who actually love her.
Absolutely. And a dead brother too, which I like that they made reference to that, because that's another bit of a comic deep pull, and I liked that.
Yeah, again, I think it was written in the script, but the animators, like, really went for it. That it was just like an urn in the opening credits of the sitcom.
Also Harley's own Judaism. I like that. We're reminded of that as well.
Yes, absolutely. You know, it's funny, like, because I'm Jewish and half of the staff was Jewish, and I think, you know, I feel like there was times when, you know, as a Jew, like, I think that sometimes we were trying so hard in the show to, like, think about marginalized groups of people, right? To make sure, like, we were, you know, we have a whole love story between Harley and Ivy, and we wanted that, like, queer representation to feel real and feel authentic, you know? And I think as a Jew, sometimes I would just, like, I don't think as much about Jews. And so I saw afterwards a couple people were being like, hey, I felt like these jokes or some of these depictions were like not great depictions of Jews, and in re-looking at it, I'm like, yeah, I think we missed a couple things. But I think by the time we got to Harley's life, we really wanted to make sure that it was like, yeah, this is a Jewish character. Like, she's Jewish.
And that was wonderful. Again, too, you mentioned the Harley Ivy romance and everything, which was definitely something that, really interested me in the show, because it's something they play within the comics and Elseworlds and everything, but they never really whole hog committed to it the way this show does. And again, just speaking for myself as someone who covered the show as it was coming out and everything, man, a lot of comic nerds have broken gaydar. I'm not going to lie that so many were shocked and amazed where it's like, I can't believe they made them a couple. I'm like, guys, that's literally been the subtext of the show since episode 1. How did you not pick up on this?
Yes, I mean, that was like, I remember when we were first doing it, we were like, we need to sleeve bread, because our fear was like people were going to be like, hey, you just threw them together, which we the whole point of the show was they were eventually going to get together.
Thank you.
And so we wanted to leave breadcrumbs exactly from episode 1. I mean, in episode 1, Ivy tells her, I love you.
Yeah.
Like you see the lengths Ivy goes to do that, to like help Harley, and like that was, and also I think it was important to us to not tell we wanted to be able to show like a queer love story that wasn't like a coming out story. Like it was just two women who were in love, right? And they love each other, and that's the story we're telling. They're not also trying to cope with like, what is my sexuality? Even though that's obviously a huge thing for a lot of people, but I think I've seen that story, and we wanted to tell the story of just two women being in love without also having to put anything else on top of it.
That's really interesting. Even me as a fan who digs into stuff a lot. Wow, you're right. Yeah, they never had a coming out moment. You're absolutely right. Holy shit, how did I not catch that? You guys really tightrope walked that one. That's awesome. Another thing too, obviously, is that season 1 and season 2 were done back to back with only like a month in between the shows, coming out and airing. What was that like, working on 2 seasons of television back to back, and knowing what had to go where, basically?
It was actually kind of great because we got to make the first 2 seasons of the show in a total vacuum, because both seasons were done before the first one even came out, or like close to done. And so for us, it was like we got to make a show without any fan reaction, which like, and I love fan reaction. Like I'm active on the Harley subreddit. Like I read reviews. I mean, as you see, like I interact with you, I interact with other people, and like I like talking about the show. But it was a unique opportunity. You just don't get to do that very often. Make 2 seasons of TV before anyone even sees the first season. And, I remember one time earlier in our career, we had a meeting with Damon Lindelof, and he was like talking about the fact that he was like, I don't think you can make a show like Lost anymore, because you'd you'd constantly be churning through like fan reactions to everything, and everybody would be guessing everything, and it would ultimately just like turn into mush. And I think, we didn't have that. And so, if we get a 3rd season, which I really hope we do, and I feel like we should,
no doubt,
that'll be the first season we make with like those fan thoughts in our head.
Interesting. I, again, too, just speaking, from my own very particular point of view, I loved early on in the show you actually did kind of cast a glance to the online superhero community with Dr. Psycho's kid basically being a supervillain reviewer. I'm like, hey, look, it's me.
Yeah, we were, because we tried, like, part of our pitch to the show was like, hey, we want all the things that come with all the moments of being a supervillain that aren't the ones you see in the movies will be where the show lives, right? So, like, in reality, if there were supervillains and I think, actually, by the way, I think the Boys does this really well on Amazon. But I think, like, all the things that would come along with these big, huge personalities are things like there would be an active online community, like talking about it,
Naturally.
like there'd be like those things would happen, and there would be somebody who is the most famous reviewer who would have a lot of power, who would, so I think, and the Legion, and like, think about a supervillain. They dress up in costumes to commit crimes.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, it's not to conceal their identity. It's just because they have these enormous egos. So of course they would read all their own reviews.
I'm signing my work.
Yes, exactly. So I think that was like an important thing to us, is to talk about, all the ego involved in this kind of thing.
Naturally. You mentioned, too, about just how supportive, DC and Warner Brothers and everyone was when it came to making the show. Was there anything that they ever really put their foot down? They're like, that's a little too far. Oh, no, you can't do that because we're working with something over here.
Yeah, there was. I remember there was two things. One of them I can share because this didn't end up happening.
Okay.
But when we were first casting the show, before we knew, because we loved Diedrich's version of Batman from Brave and the Bold.
Yeah, I love that connection.
Yeah, but we were like, oh, maybe we should like not use something that's like already existed. Maybe we should, maybe we should go a different direction. And before we actually got to like talk to Diedrich, and we were like, oh, he's perfect. But I remember we sent a thing, and we were like, hey, we'd like to send an offer out to John Hamm to play to voice Batman, and we had sent out a lot of offers, and DC was never like, no, you can't, and they were just like, you cannot send it out for him to be Batman, and we realized that it seemed like they were trying to get him to play live action Batman.
you can't have him because we might want him.
Yes, exactly, and then obviously they ended up not going with John, but so that was one. There was another one where we, again, like Commissioner Gordon was a conversation, and definitely we had to get them there, we had our initial version of Aquaman was like super Momoa.
Oh,
it was
really?
Like super bro, super dude. We took it like really far. Like he was like, I grew up in San Diego, which is, I think, is like the epicenter of bros.
Naturally.
And so the character was like very much a San Diego bro. And DC was like, no, we hate this. We hate it so much. Like, we're like, Aquaman has to be like regal. So we reconceived the character to be like this kind of like guy who would be in an episode of Frasier, basically.
That's funny.
And we thought they'd hate that too, but they were like, no, this is way better. We like this. And I can't think of anything else. Like, honestly, like when we were doing Powerless, like we couldn't do anything. Like, we couldn't show Batman's hands. One time we asked to have Batman's hands in a episode, and they were like, no. So,
wow.
So we, I think live action, because they just don't want to, like, they're very careful about what everything is in live action. But in this, they really just, like, gave us the keys to the castle.
That's so amazing. Again, you mentioned Powerless again. There's a lot of recurring performers from Powerless to this. Obviously, you got Ron Funches. Obviously, you got Alan Tudyk and everyone coming back here. And I think that's so amazing. And, oh, hey, well, Tudyk is in my mind. I'm sure you caught this in one of the last episodes of Doom Patrol. They actively mention, hey, where's Alan Tudyk's character? Oh, we got a voice acting gig.
Yes, I thought that was awesome. I think Doom Patrol is so underrated. It goes places that no other comic book show goes, really. And I think it's...
And so true to the source. I was gonna say, and so true to the source material too. In that weirdness, like those people get it, much like you Harley folks got it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's so clear they like love it. They really. Yeah, I hope that show finds a big audience on Hbo Max. I think they did such a good job.
Sure did.
Yeah, I mean, this our voice cast was like insane. I mean, it was just one of those things where every single time we'd be like, oh, well, who's our first choice for this role? And then we'd go out to them and they'd be like, yeah, I'll do it, which never happens. It's like it's usually like impossible to get your fourth choice for anything.
Like even characters who didn't even have those big of parts, like Rachel Dratch as Nora Freeze is pretty freaking cool.
Yes, totally, like exactly. And it was like all these like comedic heroes, like Rachel, who I've like watched on SNL and everything else since I was, young. Like to be able to get her to voice these like little parts, and you can see they all bring their own fun. Like one of my favorite lines in the whole show, Rachel voices. It's when they're at Themyscira for the bachelorette party episode, and they kill they defeat Luther's plan and save the Amazons, and Rachel voices the Queen of the Amazons, and she goes. And she's like, in the grand Amazon tradition, for saving us, we're going to. And Harley's like, have a fucking rager, and then Rachel goes, have a fucking rager. It's like this really weird intonation, but it's like when you get a really talented performer like Rachel Dratch, she could put a spin on any sentence and it becomes funny.
I'm glad you brought that too, is that what was great about this cast too is that so many people were pulling double, and in Alan Tudyk's case, quadruple duty voicing multiple characters.
Oh my God. Alan Tudyk and James Adomian voice, I would bet they voice 60 characters over the course of the series.
They're machines.
They're both so... I mean, Alan and James are like two of the greatest voice performers in the world. But like, yeah, it's what they do is so amazing.
So what you're saying in season 3 is we're going to get an episode that's just Alan Tudyk talking to other Alan Tudyk characters.
We were discussing that. We're like, how many Alan Tudyk characters can we get in one scene where they're all just talking to each other? Because he can make his voice do anything. And he can give like actual real performances in any of those voices, like his work, like Clayface could have been such a one-note character.
Oh yeah.
But Alan like brought so much to that character in so many different levels, and like he hit so many different things in those performances that it became a full fleshed out character. We just kept using more and more and more.
And that everyone was so game, even actors you wouldn't think, like Alfred Molina and Michael Ironside come on in, and they're like, oh, you guys are funny too.
Yeah, it was great. And also, but I should mention that Lake also probably voiced 60 characters. Like Lake is right there with Alan and James. Lake
So
Bell
good.
is she is amazing. I mean,
Transformed
really,
the
really
character
amazing.
of Poison Ivy.
Yeah, and that was definitely a discussion, because with DC, the first time we were we heard Lake's audition and we were like, this is 1,000% Poison Ivy. This is it. Like, what she did, that's it. And we sent it to DC, and they were kind of like, well, Poison Ivy is usually like a seductress. She's usually like, and we were like, we don't want to go that way. We want to do what we trust us. What Lake Bell is doing is like special. Like, she's really, really talented, and especially opposite Kaylee, who Kaylee has such, like, we purposely only had Kaylee ever voice Harley. Like, we didn't want to have Kaylee do double duty on anything, because we wanted Harley to just sound like Harley, and that's it. There's no, like, extra stuff. And so what Kaylee was able to do, like, opposite Lake, like, both those two are just such talented comedic performers.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. The thing that made me fall in love with Lake Bell's performance was in episode 2 when she's telling all those bad little rich kids to fuck off, and I'm like, all right, yep, I'm in love now. Yep, can't break this.
Yeah, that was, and Lake ad-libbed also a lot of any line where she's cursing. Is probably something that was like improv by Lake.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask that too, because a lot of the comedy in the show does have kind of this improvisational feel to it. Was there like a lot of room in the scripts for the actors to kind of vamp and kind of do their own thing?
Yeah, so like our co-creator of the show, Dean Laurie, it was me, Patrick, and Dean. We like to all develop the show together. And Dean also had been with us on Powerless, but previous to Powerless, Dean was like one of the people who ran Arrested Development.
Hey.
And so like Dean also directed, along with Charlie Adler and Patrick, but Dean, the early episodes, directed all the voice performances. And Dean was like, look, like, I think we can bring the style of how people speak in live action and how they speak in Arrested Development, how we kind of have this like bantery trail off, overlapping dialogue where we allow for a lot of improv, I think we can have that here on the show, even though that's not done in animation really.
No.
And so, yeah, it's not done at all. So Dean really like brought that to the show. Dean, if you love the way the show sounds, and I do, I love the way that the dialogue kind of overlaps and stuff. Like that's Dean Lorey. That's like Arrested Development. That's what he brought to the show.
That is so freaking cool, and I think you guys helped kind of start a trend because between the improvisational tone on this and like Rick and Morty will do one like once a season. There's a new Bobby Moynihan show called Lofi, ironically also with Ron Funches in it, and that show is just straight up improv. That's just they get a bunch of funny comedians together and then they animate it later, and I'm like, wow, what an interesting way to do a show. Of course, that show is only like 10-11 minutes, but still.
Yeah, no, I think I'm glad that people are like using animation in all these different ways because it really like it's such a rewarding medium where you can really do anything. And I think as BoJack Horseman has shown, like you can tell really emotional stories. Like I think in the episode where Harley and Ivy kiss for the first time in Bane's pit, Ivy gets on stage and she like gives this monologue about how she's kind of like hit rock bottom and how she's lived her whole life in a pit, essentially, like some emotional pit, and it's like a minute and a half of just close on Poison Ivy's animated face. And it's a testament to like Lake being such a good vocal performer, Colin Heck, who directed the episode, like putting so much care into the facial acting of the character, but also like, we probably don't get to do that episode if BoJack doesn't do what BoJack does.
Yeah, does a whole silent episode, does an episode that's just him at a funeral.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think like, we stand on their shoulders to be able to do those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I've stolen a fair amount of your day today, and I appreciate it. But as we start winding down here, anything else you want to promote? Anything else you want to talk about? Obviously, we're not quite sure yet about a possible season 3, although we both agree it would be truly awesome. And DC Fandom event is in a few weeks, so maybe we'll know better by then.
I hope so. I mean, as currently, I'll be totally honest. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like we should get one. I think we were definitely one of the breakouts of DC Universe.
Oh, hell yeah.
But it's up to HBO Max whether or not they're going to pick up another. And we've been talking with them, but I mean, really, it is like people putting like I know it sounds silly, but like people online putting pressure on DC on HBO Max and telling them I love this show and watching the show on HBO Max.
Yeah.
Like especially, I mean I think that's the biggest vote you can make is watching it with your time online. And so I think we're close. I think we'll get one, but I don't know for certain and I wish we had already heard. I know there's things happening, but
Indeed there is, even before we started. But yeah, come on, HBO Max, do the right thing. Don't leave the Harley money on the table. Come on.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a big audience for the show. Like they've come out and watched it. Like it's not a thing where it's like, oh, this is this critical darling that no one watched. Like we had a lot of people watch the show, so I feel like. And a lot of
really well-done think pieces and a lot of, cultural websites picking up on it, too. Like, a lot of really good eyes were on the show.
Yeah, that's what I've been most blown away by is just, like, the amount of people who have, like, felt some kind of, like, emotional connection from the show or felt like the show was putting out something positive. One of my friends is a writer, and she says, she's like, our only real job is to make sure we're not putting like negative shit out into the world.
That's an excellent way to look at it.
It's like try to make the best TV you can and try to put positive like things out in the world. It doesn't mean like shows have to be rosy and positive. Just that the messages you're asking people to think about, the things like you're putting out things that are making the world better. That's really your only job, or at worst, just things that aren't making the world worse.
Absolutely. How? Oh, I guess too, because now you reminded me of this. How did it feel that the big Harley Ivy kiss episode also happened to air on the same day that She-Ra also did their big long running queer romance kiss as well? Isn't that a funny bit of serendipity?
Yeah, that was crazy. I haven't watched She-Ra, so I didn't know that was happening. But then when I saw that, I was like, oh wow, this is so cool. It's like serendipitous, that these two things are happening at the same time. I think like that. It felt like, oh, this feels like a cultural step forward.
Yeah, that it all happened on the same day. So, yeah, thank you so much, Justin, for coming and talking to me today. This was really wonderful. I'm sure the fans are going to positively love this. Where can they find you on social media? Where can they follow you, and where can they go to pressure HBO Max to make sure we get season 3?
Well, they can follow me, Justin_Halpern, on Twitter. And that's really all I have. I don't have an Instagram or anything else. And then, I really think like tweeting at HBO Max and also just watching the show. If you have HBO Max, just toss the show on, and that's the biggest way you can show them, hey, this is the audience for it.
Wicked.
So I think those are the two big things.
There you go. So there you have it, everyone. I'll start closing the show here right now. Again, if you're a patron, you'll get to listen to this first before anyone else. You can become a patron for as low as $1 a month. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Cape Joel. You can follow me on Facebook, so you're always up to speed on what's going to happen next. And when we're done this recording right here, I'm going to plead and beg Justin to get me a part in season 3 so I can be, Dr. Psycho's kid's rival on the internet. I'm like the positive one, and so, we get into like a flame war and everything. I got a whole pitch, but that can wait for later. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening, and I'll be back again next week, everyone. Bye-bye.